Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Kristen Smith, Pennsylvania editor for the Center Square. Today we're talking with Anthony Hennin, Pennsylvania reporter, about restrictive housing development rules across Pennsylvania that are only hurting our housing shortage rather than helping us to alleviate it. Anthony, talk to us about some of the zoning restrictions that developers are facing that are just basically making them throw their hands up in the air and walk away from projects.
Yeah, I mean, this is something where we see the governor in a lot of areas has talked about the importance of permitting reform, of making sure the state is moving at the speed of business, I believe is the catchphrase he likes to throw out here. But something that gets overlooked and something that's not very often tackled at the state level is local zoning efforts. A lot of things around home building, around renovations, all that happens on the local level rather than the state or sometimes even the county level. And so what we're looking at is a problem as Nick Boyle, a housing developer up in the northeastern part of the state, described it as, we're going to have a major housing issue in the very near future. What's slowing down progress? The government. So he's basically arguing that from the developer side of people trying to build new homes, new apartments, renovate old buildings, a lot of these generic zoning codes, these planning codes that municipalities have adopted, they're not really taking into account the actual built environment we see. A lot of these codes are made for towns and cities that are centered on cars, whereas in the past, in a lot of these Pennsylvania towns that we have, a lot of these buildings were built pre-World War II, sometimes even earlier in the 20th century. And all the rules we have about how wide the staircase needs to be, how the electric is wired, where the light switches are, even how big buildings can be, and the setbacks you need between a building and the road, a lot of that doesn't really apply to the old way that we build things. Boyle pointed at one example in Tamaqua, where the House Republican Policy Committee held a hearing about this. He pointed to one building that has about a 2,250 square foot size. If it were an empty lot today and builders tried to put something there, they could only build a building that would be 900 square feet. So we're losing a lot of space, and we have a situation where if a developer wants to come in and renovate an old building, it would actually cost them more to update it, to bring it to code, than the entire purchasing cost would be.
So what does this mean statewide for our housing shortage?
Yeah, this basically means that it exacerbates the shortage. It makes it much, much harder, one, to build anything, two, to renovate anything, and three, to make it affordable. So we're in a situation, even if you're in urban Pennsylvania, rural Pennsylvania, suburban Pennsylvania, we have basically made it illegal to build, even slightly dense housing or even new housing or housing that's affordable for a lot of the middle class. We've seen some movement finally on the state level where there's some proposals to allow duplexes or small apartment buildings in neighborhoods that are zoned exclusively for single family housing. But what this comes down to is younger people are kind of getting pushed out of the state. Older people can't necessarily stay around other family members. This was described by Doyle Heffley, a state representative. He said, "One of the things we're seeing right now in our region is an affordable housing crisis. It is so costly to develop property. If our children are not able to buy homes in our communities, we're not going to live near our grandkids, and our communities aren't going to thrive. We're making it so restrictive and so costly to develop." So this is becoming an issue as households shrink because more people live on their own or families are smaller. We're seeing a decrease in density, which puts more pressure, more of a threat on rural land of sprawl and farmland getting eaten up at the same time where people simply cannot afford neighborhoods that maybe a generation or two they could. So, I mean, this is a national problem. This is not something that's only unique to Pennsylvania. But with less flexibility and without taking into account some of the older towns and cities in the Commonwealth, we're creating a situation where housing is more expensive and harder to get.
Anthony, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.
Learn from creative experts. At Skillshare, classes are taught by industry leaders excited to share their tools, techniques, and professional journeys with you. Follow the link in our show description to join Skillshare today and get 1 month free.